Hi, I'm Miriam Joy and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to be working on the Regal Gourd class, and this has been a big request and I've had a lot of fun teaching this, so we're going to bring this to you today. I teach a little bit different in my videos. I do step by step and allow you time to do the part and where to stop, so you're not running through the whole video and then trying to remember, okay, what did I do next, what do I do next, and so on and so forth. So the first thing we're going to do is I took a martin gourd or a kettle gourd, or you could even do it on one that's round, and I cut the top off. I wanted a little bit more elongated top, so I kept a smaller opening up on top and cleaned it out, and I spray painted that inside with my black spray, and then we're going to go ahead and show you how we colored the rest of it. To color our gourds, I'm going to be using oil paint sticks, and when I first bought mine, I bought mine in big things. I've used these for several classes and from an art store, but this little packet came with a bunch of smaller ones, and I believe there was 16 in here, and they were little guys like that with a bunch of wonderful different colors. So you have all of these color options. Now I made sure I used the iridescent and not the regular ones. I didn't like the regular ones, the way they went on the gourd. They just seemed, the color seemed to come off and didn't want to stay as good. And these are permanent and fade proof. So these are, I love these. I use them a lot in a lot of different things. And you can also find this pack on bluewhalearts.com if you're looking for those and can't find those. But today I'm going to use gold, bronze, blue, the red, and the green. And what I think about is I'm using 5 different layers, so I want to do 5 different spots on my gourd. And these kind of have a film when they dry, so we got to take that film off the top. Try to just take a little bit, not too much, so that way you're not losing it, and then put them in a plastic bag when you're done using them to kind of help keep them fresh. And don't get this stuff, kind of keep it in a trash can. I've caught that in my shoe before and tracked it around on the carpet, and that wasn't fun. So kind of watch those skins on top. So we're going to go ahead and I put it on with my fingers, and you may find another way that you like better. And I just simply rub it on and then apply it. You want to get it all rubbed out so you don't have any fingerprints on it. And I usually have a wet towel that I set next to me and wipe it off in between each one of those. And I always put one red one up on the top, or excuse me, the color I'm working on, one on the rim, so I have that color showing on the rim. And on a bowl about this big, I start out with usually 3. I just did 4 because I had a completely blank spot where I didn't have any red. So now I'm going to go to my blue. And there is no right or wrong on this. Like I said, just try and get rid of your fingerprints. And I always try and do one color at the bottom of those. And so I've got one blue there, so I'm going to start another blue here. And you can have some bigger, you can have some littler. There's no right or wrong, like I said. It's just how you interpret it. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my green. I bought these 4 or 5 years ago, and I can't believe I used them in classes. That's why the little ones will even go a long way. And then when I start getting to my color, and if you have a divot in your gourd, put your color down in there and kind of grab into it. When I start getting up to the next color, a lot of times I'll rub it up against there, make sure my finger's clean as I can get it, and then blend the two together so you're not bringing one color into the other one. You're just kind of going along. Okay, if you need to go back and add colors that you did in the beginning, that's okay. And I really should have put something down when I worked. And see, when you're working on top and this is sitting on the bottom, you want to be really careful with that because you're going to kind of scratch it. So we want to make sure that you're aware of that and that doesn't happen. Sometimes it's a good idea to have something soft underneath it, like your paper towel or anything like that, and go back and fill that in if you've done that. But be really careful when you're working on that. Try not to do that. And then you're just going to blend the colors in really well. And there's all kinds of fun things that you can do with this. You can come in and you can make loops with this. Kind of do it like that. And you'd want to have a different color than the color you're putting it on, and just rub it with your finger. And I'm going to show you another gourd in just a second here, but another way that you can also do it, and I like my darker kind of charcoal color, and you can run lines down it, and I've got to open it up, it's not opened. You can run your lines down your gourd as well, and that really kind of gives a neat effect, and you can do that in different colors or here and there. So I'll show you another gourd that's done with, but there's a bunch of different ways that you can do that, so don't get just stuck thinking, you know, it only works one way, or that you're stuck with the way I'm doing it. Really think outside the box. Now, this does need 24 hours to dry to be nice and permanent, so you're not getting your fingers or hands into it. I have kind of cheated when I've taught this in class. What I'll do is take them outside and make them spray varnish it with a 10-minute varnish, and it dries, and that really helps that dry and doesn't get your fingerprints into it as well. But so you can still get scratches and stuff, and if time is an issue, then you can do that and then come back in after you're all done and just touch it up again with your oil paints. But if you have the 24 hours to let it dry, that is preferred. Here's the one with the lines going down. I just did it the same way we did it, blended it all together, and just keep blending it until it looks really good for you. But when you're bringing something down like this, you don't rub it very much, you just lightly rub it, but then you have that look as well. I also have a video on my YouTube site that's just how to apply the oil stick, so there may be a few more tricks in that you may want to check out as well. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to teach you how to make your own stencil for your gourd. And you can see how this opening is larger than the one I did previously. And what we're going to do is we're going to divide it into 5 sections. And it doesn't have to be exact. If you want to measure, then go ahead and measure. And don't forget later on, in case I forget to tell you, to paint that black with oil or with acrylic paint right there, so you don't forget that. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a page protector, and this is an old kind of beat up one, or if you don't have a page protector, you also could use just a clear piece of plastic, whatever is easier for you. And we're going to kind of line up our marks here. So we have 5 different sections, or 5 different lines. So we're going to go from section to section, and what we're going to kind of do is we want to take it further. We don't want to really do it not too far, and we drop down from the top, and what we're going to kind of think about is kind of almost like a cloud, but where this would come 1, 2, and 3. So we have 1, 2, and 3, and then the puffy cloud, this right in the middle of that line there, 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to meet up with this guy here. You don't want him over so far because this is the part that we're going to stencil, so you want to keep this part smaller, and this is going to work for all of it all the way around. Now you could cut this out so you're only cutting out 1, but I'm going to cut out more than 1, and I'm going to take my stencil and I'm going to draw it larger, just like that, so that it's easy to hold onto, and just cut that out with your scissors, and it should kind of look like that when you're done. Now that we've cut off our template, you can adjust it to the lines between. You can make it smaller, you can make it bigger, whatever you need. Now remember, we're dropping down a little ways here. We're not doing it right on the edge, maybe about 1 inch. I'm going to use a little bit of painter's tape. I also normally just hold this on, but I want to show you another way to do it. So that guy's up there, and this guy's down here. And don't tape it on where you've already been before. So this loop is going to come right up here, and I'm going to use dark brown, and I'm going to use my sponge, just any craft sponge, but you want to wring it out where there is no water whatsoever in it. And I'm going to sponge into my brown paint, dark brown, dark acrylic, and we're going to pounce. And especially you want to get those edges nice and sharp. And we're only going to come about halfway now. And this one, I already went ahead and did one so you can kind of see that. And those edges should be nice and sharp like I said. We're just going to simply take that off. And you have a section. So we're going to go ahead and see how we left this section, which kind of, like I called it, a top of a cloud. You can wipe this guy off, clean him up so we can use him again if you want to, so we don't get it into him. So I'm going to put that guy back on, and we're going to put this guy where he meets up with that one. So we're adjusting this guy a little bit. And I'm just going to tape that guy down, and see how this is all smooth now, so it doesn't matter. So it gives you a real variety of ways to adjust it. And so we're just going to come right here, make that top part, and sponge that all the way in. And then just do that around all 5 sections. And make sure that you can see your design pretty well, and be careful, we haven't do an exact pattern. They aren't the same one way or the other, so if you go back to fill one in and it doesn't fit exactly, make sure that you haven't flipped it over. So go ahead and put that brown all the way around. Now that our brown has dried, we're going to come in and we're going to color in again with different metallic paints, and you could use different ones, it doesn't matter. I picked mine up at Walmart, and again, they're metallic, so it does make a difference. You don't want the flat, because this goes with our oil paint sticks, our metallic paint sticks. And the kind of colors I would suggest you have is ones that are the colors in your bottom part as well. So like I have a purple here, and I don't have purple in here, so maybe I should switch him out and try and find a green, but especially the gold and the bronze, because that's what I used. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with red here. And you can do as many of these or a few of these. And I'm going to, again, dampen my sponge and just have it a little dry, not real wet. But what we're going to do this time is we're only going to sponge here and there. It's not going to be solid, so we can get all of the different colors in. Now on this piece, I might not even move my pattern around. I may just do like that section there. And you want to make sure that your other paint underneath it's dry, so you don't pick it back up when you move it around with your template. And we're just going to sponge our first color on there. And try not to do on the same area every time. So that's when I want to do a little bit there. Now on this guy, I kind of didn't bring that one up quite as high. And then we're going to rinse it out, and then I'm going to do another color. So now I've switched over to my bronze, and again I'm just going to do the same thing, and don't forget to do these areas in between. And if you get it down here, just take your Q-tip and wipe it off, and make sure we're hitting those areas. And I'm going to use my stabilizer. If you guys haven't got one of these, you need one of these. You can order them on Bonnie Gibson's site off of Amazon, and she gets credit for it to help continue paying for her Gourd Art Enthusiast website, which is a great site. Okay. And then I'm going to come around with my gold and my blue and do the same thing. This is the blue metallic, and I really, really like the blue metallic. It just really helps make it pop and bring the brightness out. It's one of my favorite colors to use on this. I got a little bit there. I'll come back and take that off with a Q-tip. And then just make sure that you've got that colored nice and well. And see, like right here, I missed putting any color right there. So we want to make sure that we get that. And then any colors that art on there. And you can play with that. I didn't have any green metallic, which I thought with this color of green metallic here would be really nice to kind of bring in. But we've kind of got that all done. So you can go ahead and let that dry. And one of the things I might do at this point in time, once it's dry, I might go ahead and put a varnish coat over it, and you could spray varnish it, or you could do brush on varnish, because none of this is going to bleed. So either of those options are open to you. And what that will do, it will help you keep the gold, if you make a mistake and you scrape it off, from bothering your paint underneath it as well. You can leave it, that's not a problem, and then just touch it up if it does come off, and that's okay too. So if you want to do that option, you can do that after it's dry at this time. The first thing we're going to do is teach you the basics of wax design. And if you've taken a class from me or you've watched my video and you've already learned all this, you can fast forward through this part, that's fine. You'd be amazed though how many people sit through this part again, even in a class, and say how much they picked up or little tips that they didn't catch before. So let's get started. The first thing that I want to have you note is I only use Crayola crayon. I don't use any other crayons. If you've ever worked with or colored with a different type of crayon, you notice that it's not as bright and it's a lot waxier. So this is a thicker product and you get a brighter color. So it is important that it is just Crayola crayon. I try and do most of my classes in the 24 pack so that you always have that available to you. So the next thing we're going to do, well, the next thing, we're going to talk about is our low temp melting pot. This is a low temp melting pot. If you've ever had a hot glue gun, this is the low setting on a high to a low setting. So we need the one that has a well. The well is where we're going to actually put our crayon. We also have a chimney in it so that we can keep our tools warm when they're not in use. And we also have the wood piece on it so that the tools sit in it without falling out. The one thing that I do not like about this is the cord comes to the front, so you will always have that towards you. I always tell you, if you're left-handed, put it in the top left of your corner of your tray. If you're right-handed, put it in the top right-hand corner of your tray. I always work on a tray. I tell the story about when I first started playing with this. I had 6 of these, all full with wax, hooked up to a power cord, went around the corner and happened to catch the power cord, and I had wax fly everywhere. So ever since then I've been working on a tray, so it helps to catch you. We also have 3 pot trays that are individually divided that are very nice. I didn't want to put it on this video because they take up too much room for everything I want to show you today, but you can see those on my website, so those are really nice as well. So it's real important that you have the low temp melting pot. I have tried different melting pots. While they're good for other things like the round one, they're flat, and because of the little part of the well, you use most of the time on my products I use less than 1 crayon to do a project. So by just using that little tiny part, that's why we need that. So it's real important. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our hobby knife, and that is another thing. If you happen to notice, I have a hobby knife with a shovel nose, and I like the shovel nose. I don't prefer to work with the flat ones because gourds aren't flat if you've ever tried to work on one. So this one seems to do really well when we get ready to remove our wax and work with that. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to cut the paper. Now when you do it the first time, you're going to cut just above that Crayola symbol on the crayon, and I just cut it straight down, and then hopefully It isn't a sticky one. And we're going to peel that wrapper. And then I pop it. I never try and cut it. And then I pop it into 2 pieces. And we're going to put that in that well, and you're going to notice that's starting to melt immediately. The reason that we broke it into the 2 pieces, you can see that pieces on top is kind of going around the well, and we want as much as we can get directly into that well. Never ever put it into the chimney. It just makes a big gigantic mess, so we want to make sure that we don't do that. So we're going to take that and put that there. And another thing I wanted to tell you is never cut your crayon like this if you can help it, because your thumb is right behind it, and trust me, it doesn't end well. I've done that in several classes and I've had to run and get a band-aid. So when you're cutting your next pieces of your crayon off, take it and push down on the crayon and cut the little piece off that way. We want to keep the well full. Right now it's perfect. When we get about 3/4 or under, your strokes start to get smaller. So that's why we cut the little pieces and keep adding them into the well. So that's why it's really important to keep that full. We want to keep that full as we're working. The next thing that we're going to talk about are our wax design tools. And I'm showing you 3 of the 4 that I have in my set right now. And I have a number 1, a number 0, which is a 2 to a 3 millimeter, a number 1, and a number 2 tool that I'm working with today. And these are much loved, as you can tell. And each of them has a different size ball on it, so they actually make 2 size strokes. In the tree class, I'm going to kind of let you see how far each one pulls and kind of let you pick which one you would like to use as you're working. So we're going to stick this one. I'm going to use the number 2. The number 2 is the easiest to learn on, and I'm going to put another one into the warmer and go to that in just a minute. I'm going to tell you the most important thing that you need to remember when you're working with the wax design. It's really important and a lot of people forget it, so please make sure you're paying attention. You have to warm your tools. If you take a cold tool and dip it into your wax, it's going to look like that, and you can see it sticking, and you're going to say, what did I do wrong? So make sure that you warm the tool. It only takes about 15 seconds to set it directly in there, or keep it in your warmer as well. You don't have to have it into your warmer first. You can simply set it into your wax. Some people think they have to warm it up in the warmer. You don't. You can simply set it into your wax for about 15 seconds. It does take just a little bit longer in the winter, so just make sure that that's nice and warm. Now, when we were looking at the wax, the low temp melting pot, it has a slide on it down to the bottom of the base, and it's deeper down here at this very bottom. So it's real important that we go down to the deepest part of that, and if you have one, you can look at that so you can see where the deepest part of the well is. We always want to go to the deepest part of the well, and I always tell people to touch the bottom. Don't come out the sides, because that actually takes wax off. So it's real important not to come up the sides or anything like that. When I have a class or you're practicing, I always tell them to use the crayon colors that you don't use a lot for other projects. So practice with your colors that you don't like as well, or they're starting to build up. So that's why I have like an orange and a purple, because I don't use those as much in my classes. The next thing I really want people to pay attention to is when they lift it, people get nervous and they'll go back and forth and not realizing that they're not touching the bottom again, and that takes wax off of their tool as well. So you want to make sure you're going all the way to the bottom and touch it. The next thing that we do, we don't even realize we do. So while you're first starting this, I want you to sit there and watch yourself. You take it and you knock that drip off. It's a natural instinct in us that we want to knock that drip off. So really watch yourself. Another thing that a lot of people do is they'll not know where they want to go on their gourd, and they'll sit there and hold it as well so it's cooling off, or be talking to their friends. I always say you either need to be in the well, putting on your stroke, and then returning to your well. Never have your tool out where it is cooling off. But once you start working and you have that down, you don't need to warm it each time. It stays warm. So we're going to go all the way to the bottom, and what I do is I touch it and I pull it straight out. Now see how I've really got my hand to the side of that, and I'm putting that there and I'm pulling it. So set your hand, rest your hand on the gourd so that you have control of that stroke. And I'm going to change colors here. For one reason, I want the darker color to show up a little bit more, but I also want to show you how to change your color out as well. To clean your tool, you simply just take it while it's warm. It's much easier, and just wipe it like that in your paper towel. But we're going to take a cotton ball, and we're going to divide this cotton ball into half. And slowly, don't put your finger in there, it's hot, and I like using my number 0 tool because it's the smallest and I can get into the corners with it. We're going to slowly push this in. If you go too fast, it comes up over the sides and it starts to make a bigger mess, and you're going to be amazed how easy this is to clean. And remember, we've only used one cotton ball. This is the other half that we're finishing cleaning this with. The more you keep this in a ball, the easier it is to push around. So we've cleaned that out, and we're going to put in the purple color, remember, just above the Crayola sign, and slit that paper down and pop it 2 pieces right into the well. Alright, and you're going to see how fast that starts to melt. And then we're still working with our number 2 tool. We're going to give that, if you've just started your color for the first time, please make sure that it melts all the way first before you use it. But if you're reloading a color like it is now, you don't have to wait for the whole thing. You can just keep on working. But we're going to go back to where we left off about setting your hand down on your gourd. And it's easier with the gourd than it is just a piece like this. A lot of times I will be setting it down and I will hold it with my hand. You also can practice on paper, but never throw any part of your gourd away. There's always something you can be doing it, whether it's practice pieces or even old gourds that won't work for anything else, that have a bad side to them or caved in. You might be able to practice on one side of them. So there's a lot of things that you can do. So we're going to set that down and we're going to lay it to the side and we're going to pull it. And we're always pulling it towards us. If you're a painter, you always pull it towards you, never away from you. It's much harder to do it that way. And I've warmed my tool for about 15 seconds, and we're going to go. We're going to lay our hand down and we're going to pull that stroke. Now if you see, I don't pick my hand up. I let the color run out. Now I wanted to, this stroke is perfect. See on the sides where it's not quite as smooth as this first one? I actually didn't let the tool warm enough up in the very beginning. The second one it had cooled off just a tad. So if you get these edges that aren't quite real smooth, you need to warm your tool up just a little bit more. So we're going to do another one. Make sure you're not knocking it, hitting it, or taking any of your paint off, and pull it till it runs out. Now see how much smoother that is. And you're going to notice the more you practice, the more they're going to be the same size. And the ball controls the length and the width of your strokes. So that is how we determine the size. And I held that out for just a second. So let's put it back in and warm it up for just a second, so we don't have one that we don't like. Now another thing, as I get a lot of people in here and they want to do a stroke and they want to go like that, well, it's going to look just like that. You don't want to do it. Another thing is if your tails start to skip, you're pulling that too fast. So if you can see, I'm doing a nice even pulled stroke. I'm not hurrying it. I'm not doing it too slow or too fast, just nice and even and pulled. So we're going to try our other size tip. Now this guy's been in here warming. If you don't clean it and you've put this in here by mistake and it's still got wax in it, simply take your Q-tip and get that wax out. That's all you have to do. So we're going to put that one in there to warm, and this guy's still nice and warm. So we're going to do him, and this is a little bit smaller stroke. See the difference between this size and this size? He's a little bit smaller. So we're getting nice strokes out of that. So I kind of want you to know what size tool makes what size stroke. I'm actually going to set the smallest one in there. We're going to play with him just a little bit. But we're going to talk about if you happen to make a mistake, let it dry, and then come with your hobby knife. And I'm always working at an angle. I'm never going straight up and down. That's when you start to scratch your gourd. Is always come underneath it. And see how we got underneath that? And it's removing so much nicer. So I get about that first half off, and then I come in and now I'm working the other direction towards me. And we simply take that off. And if you have a little line like this, you can also take your gum eraser. And the fun thing about working in my studio is if I didn't have it, I can grab it. So that's where it makes fun, is you can get to see all my bloopers. And we're going to come in here and we're going to finish removing any of that we needed to. Okay? So you get redos in this. So I want you to practice removing some of your strokes as well as putting them on. So we get redos and do-overs in this. And that's what's so great about this wax design, is we know we're never perfect. So, okay. Now I have warmed this little guy up, so we're going to try to do him all the way to the bottom at the top, all the way down. See, he is smaller. Okay. So he's making wonderful little lines. And don't think about just straight lines. Fleur-de-lis, there's all kinds of fun things. I actually hit a bump in my gourd here, but you can go with it. You cannot go over this part of your gourd because it's wax and it's already drying. It's not going to look good, but you can bump up next to it. You can bring it in beside it and go across, especially its tail. And because there's not as much wax down here, you can get away with going on that part. So you never want to try. I have a lot of people that when they're doing my classes want to put the stroke on and they want to come back in and mess with it. Now see how that's starting to look really bad? This is already drying. It's amazing how fast a stroke dries on you. Let me show you an example. See how it's nice and shiny right there? I'll put a new one next to it so you can see how fast. As soon as it turns dull, that is dry. So you would never want to try and come in here and fix this because all you're doing is messing it up. If you have a stroke that you don't like, remove it. Never try and fix it. The next thing we're going to talk about is dots. You always want to go, the size of your dot is the size of the tool that you're working with. So you always want to keep it the same. Now see those little flecks that happen to appear right there? If you get one or two with a dot, that's normal. That's just the nature of the beast. You can come in if you don't like them and remove them with your little hobby knife or X-Acto knife. It's really simple to do. The other real fun thing with dots is you can come in here and you can do a descending dot where you're actually running out of wax. So that's a really neat effect as well. So practice your dots, practice your strokes, and work with this for a while till you're comfortable with it. Once you're comfortable with that part of it, we're going to get started on our class. In this gourd, I used two different colors of crayon. I used red and I used a certain gold. And I'm going to talk to you about the gold crayons. This is what the gold looks like. And you can see it's kind of drab. It's okay, but it's not as pretty as some of the other golds. And it is actually not a metallic color. It only took me a few years to realize that. And I'm going into our metallic FX. And if you only have the gold, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I want to show you what the different golds look like. This is Gold Fusion, and this one is Metallic Sunburst. And you can see the difference. They have the sparkle in them. And I like the real gold look. It gives it the Regal look. So we're going to use the Metallic Sunburst. And again, this is in your metallic crayons. If you're trying to find crayons or if you need a certain color, you can always order certain colors off of the CrayolaStore.com. Go to the custom box, and that's how I order a lot of the colors that I use a lot. And I think this will only take one crayon. Unless you have a bigger gourd, you shouldn't need much more than one crayon. The guy I'm using here has got a little bit warm, so we'll hopefully be okay with him. And also our tool size kind of depends on how big your area is. I'm going to start first with my 0 tool, the larger end, and we'll see if we want to bump up to the number 1. In fact, let me start out with the number 1, the small end, and then we'll maybe backtrack on that. We'll kind of check that out when we're starting here. Now, I'm going to flip it upside down to work with, and we're thinking about what we're doing first of all is we're covering this line along the edges here. And I'm going to start by coming in and pulling that one there. And you want to kind of make them different. You don't have to follow what I'm doing exactly. And then we're going to kind of bring other ones here and there. So I brought 2 on the inside. I'm going to bring 1 out here on the outside. Now on that one, I think I'm just going to do 1 there and 1 up there. So I'm going to come down now. Now that one, if they don't reach all the way, have one come the other direction. That's okay. And you're just going to kind of freelance it. There's no right or wrong on this. And just do what you feel comfortable. And if you want to switch down to that smaller brush, tool, do so. Now the one thing I did notice here, and I didn't do and I need to do, is I want to make one of these longer than the other one. I don't want them to kind of end at the same spot, which is what I'm doing right now. So we want to make one of those longer. So like right here, I'm going to come down on the edge, especially at the end of these, and make those longer. We're going to make that one longer, bring that one in shorter here. And I'm going to make this one really curly. And that one that direction. So now that we've got that guy longer, we're going to come in and let's see, we're going this direction. And I am going to make this guy longer. And I'm going to have this guy meet them. And again, like I said, there is no right or wrong on this. This is just how you interpret it. Even which direction you're going. If you think you should be going a different direction than how I'm going, then go that direction. Now we're coming in and kind of meeting them. You can't really cross over on a thick area. I'm going to make a curl loop right there. Now, I'm missing something here. So let's put that there. And you just kind of look at it until it's pleasing to your eye. And we're also going to add some dots to it as well. And if it's easier for you to come down to the bottom and work your way up, come down to the bottom and work your way up. Again, there is no right or wrong. It's how you interpret the design. Down there and that direction there, and I'm going to do this guy. And remember, if we talked about if you mess up, then just scrape that off and start again. It is not a big deal at all. My biggest piece of advice, don't overthink it. So many people try to make it be a certain way. Just do it. Just do it. And turn it different directions and you'll see different things that you may want to do a certain way or something. So turning it different directions helps as well. And I totally messed that one up. You don't have to worry about scraping the whole thing off if you're going to go right over the top of it. Make sure your well is not filled too full because that will cause it to drip, especially with the metallic. Find that line. But you can see most of them I do on the inside, not as many, and by that I mean, and I dropped one right on there. By that I mean on this side here, not probably opposite kind of what I said, and a few on this part. And we're going to remove this guy. And don't forget that if your gold starts to get too low, and I'm almost at that point, that's about 3/4 full, that your strokes are going to start to be smaller, and I haven't even used half of my crayon yet, so you should have way more than enough crayon when you're doing it. And you should be holding your gourd so you're pulling your strokes towards you. If you need to turn it around more than I am, I've had a lot of practice. It's easier to do it that direction. And remember to hold your gourd, and I'm tilting mine up a little bit more so you can see it, but if you're doing it with yourself at home, tip that gourd as flat as possible. That allows the wax to stay in place and not run away from you. You don't want it to take off on you. And if you're having problems trying to figure out how to do it, sit down with your white charcoal pencil and kind of make lines. And you also can kind of Google swirls or something like that as well to kind of figure out how you want them to look. There's a lot of swirl designs, even in advertisements lately. So you can use aids like that to help you. Don't be afraid to put that charcoal pencil and try to cover the charcoal pencil up as much as possible so you don't have to worry about getting that off later on. And as you can see, we're almost done already. Now I have noticed I have not done some on the inside here. So I've got to go back and put a couple. And just do it so that it's appealing to you. And I kind of kept that going the same direction every time I did it, and I probably should have switched off to the other. But on this one, I want to show you, I even came down more so and pulled that in. And by that, on those, I'll show you what I mean. I kind of even brought that down and went in that a little bit more. And we can add some of those around. And you don't have to do them even numbered. Be careful when you're working on with wax, your gourd underneath is not getting scraped or squished. It's another nice thing about the stabilizer. But you can keep going back and adding more and more. So we've kind of added that, and that added a little bit more design to it, I guess. But if you feel it still needs more, go back and even add more. And then once we're done with that, we're going to come in and we're going to add some dots where we may feel that it needs just a little bit more something. And I'm not doing them all the same size. I'm reloading them when I think it needs it. And you can do them on both sides, on the inside and the outside. And you can even, if you wanted to, do some descending ones. You can do as many, as little as you think it needs. Now I'm putting more dots on this one because I think I did less gold work, so I think it kind of looks nice with more gold dots. You can even set them on top of an area that may need to help cover up. Like there. Okay, go ahead and get your gold work on, and we're going to come back and put on our red dots. With our red dots, we're just going to do, we picked a color. You could pick blue, you could pick green, you could pick red, whatever you wanted to, but it helps pop this color into this, ties it in a little bit more, and I really like that. So we're going to do 3 descending dots, and we're going to just kind of do them randomly in our sections. And there is no right or wrong again on that. Just kind of space them out a little bit. I'm going to bring some down here. Same thing with your dots with the red. Try to keep it as flat as possible with your dots. And if you want to just put 1 instead of 3, that's fine too. And see how fast that goes. And we've got all of our red dots on. So go ahead and finish up your red. Now that that's all on, we're going to come in, and you know the wax dries so fast, you don't have to worry about letting it dry. We're going to do our inside rim with our black. That only makes it nice and clean, but also covers up the graphite pencil marks, and every once in a while I forget to do them, and I'll have a gourd out in a show or something and I'll see the white pencil marks, so make sure that you cover those up. And that's just going to take us just a second around here, but isn't that beautiful gourd? It really doesn't take that much time. Once you start, you can customize your colors, but it just looks so regal, therefore its name. And how lots of fun we've had with that. So go ahead and do that, and then we're going to come back and talk about different options with this gourd. Once you've got it all completed, we're going to talk about different types of varnish. And you can spray varnish, and you know some of my favorite are triple thick. And then I've been using the Rust-Oleum 2-time coverage as well. It seems to work really well for plastics, which is the closest that the crayon is kind of to. But because we don't have any colors that are going to fade or run on us, you also could use a brush on, and I use a polyacrylic. I find that also at Walmart, and that's in the blue can, and then do a few layers of that. So any of those methods to go ahead and varnish with are fine. And I would definitely use a satin or a gloss because you want to give it that glow. You don't really, I don't think would want to use a flat, even especially with your metallic colors. They already have that little bit of extra shine, so just kind of play off of that. But I also want to talk to you about other options of color. I've done this particular design, and instead of the gold, I've used like the blue. You could use the red or the green or whatever colors are in your paint stick to accent it. So know that just by changing your colors, you can have a new different gourd each time. So there's lots of different ways you can do that. On this one, I use the red, but instead of my painting it up here, I used the instead of the paint, the gold leafing or the foil in here, and then I did the line work, which you have to kind of draw out or it doesn't end up real well, with a wax liner. And I think I would have probably liked it better actually without the lines. I think that would be kind of nice, but you can see how the red looks as well and how fun that is. And then I put gold dots down here and red dots up there. So you could even bring a third color in with your dots. There's a lot of different options if you think about that. We could have brought some blue dots in or some green dots in. So just take the basics, as I'm always telling you, and add your touch to it, or what you see in it, what that brings out in you, or how you envision that. And just use that to continue to grow your own craft as well. So that is our Regal Gourd class. If you have any questions, you know you can always email me at art@miriamjoy.com. And for our supply page and always fun specials that we have going on for you, check our website out at miriamjoy.com. God bless.